Rabbi Gruen, I've been enjoying listening to your chinuch series on Torah and Time over the course of this week and gained a tremendous amount. To be straightforward, I've been struggling with the chinuch of my daughter for the past couple of weeks and felt like a terrible mother, which was true, and I was therefore searching and asking, trying to figure out the proper approach to chinuch. My daughter is a sensitive 3-year-old, incredibly mature, responsible, giving, caring, and good. She's always been a dream child. For a couple of weeks, though, she was acting completely not herself. Defying commands, ignoring, running out of bed, hitting, yes, even her parents, and also desperately asking for attention. Now, through your classes and a lot of introspection and tefillah, I realized how to reboot and give her that care and love that she was asking for in a positive way with love and focus. Magically, Hoyu Lashem Kitov, she's back to herself. My question is, do I apologize to her for the way I mistreated her? Is it appropriate to tell her that I made a mistake and that I'm sorry? Can she know that her parent was wrong? I want to make amends. I regret that I got angry, and I've really gotten upset in my life, but I did get angry, and she felt it. I was rough when I dumped her into bed repeatedly, frustrated that she kept coming out. I once totally lost it and told her that if she keeps smacking and acting out, then she's going to go to bed without supper, and I put her into bed like that. It took me 2-3 minutes to gather myself, after which I came into her room and gently asked her if we could try again and spend time giving her supper and completing the night properly. This happened on and off for 2 or 3 weeks while my husband and I were desperately trying to figure out the right approach with her. I know now what it was. It was a need for love after my sister's chasna, where she was left with babysitters at the chasna and the sheva bruchas, and she went without us to my in-laws for Shabbos. While all those experiences were fine and she was well taken care of, she was desperate for more love and was acting out for it. Now that we've rebuilt, and I'm giving her lots of one-on-one time and positive reinforcement, she's back to herself and so good, it's incredible, but I don't want her to be good out of fear. Where do I go from here to ensure that there's no everlasting damage? Thank you, and tis committed for your classes, which are clear, helpful, caring, and so full of proper hashkafa. I just wish I had known and listened to them earlier. Okay, thank you. So, it's interesting, just because you end off with, you wished you have listened to them earlier. I mean, it sounds like your oldest, you mentioned that it's oldest actually, is just 3 years old. Okay, by the time I'm addressing this, he's probably 4. But that's pretty early on, I must say. I was just speaking in a cheder in Lakewood to the staff, and I hear these comments often when I speak about understanding children, discussing personalities and chinuch ideas, and people say, wow, if only I would have known this earlier. Because you look back and you realize, based on the new information that you're getting, how many mistakes you made in the past, and it's only normal. So it's never too late. It's never too late. And nobody should ever feel like, oh, I missed it, or I messed up already, I damaged. We talk about the words damaged. Never too late. Especially if you're already figuring this out by the time a child is 3. Okay, never too late. On the other hand, it's never too early. It's never too early. There's the old classic chinuch story of the parent who came to the Rebbe and said, when does chinuch start? He said, how old is your child? He said, 3 years. So you're 3 years late, right? It's never too early. And staying children when they're young is always good. Some people, when they hear a question about a 3-year-old making amends, apologizing to a 3-year-old, I mean, is this mother serious? I'm dealing with teenagers, I'm dealing with shidduchim, I'm dealing with other crises, whatever, and you're dealing with a 3-year-old saying, I'm sorry. But there's no reason to laugh. It's never too early. It's never too early to take chinuch seriously. Essentially, this question could be asked about anyone, because the ideas of apologizing and rebooting and redoing things that weren't done well is relative, to teenagers and to married children and to a spouse and everyone. And the question is if it's also relevant for a small child. But it's never too early. So I think that's one idea that's just important to take into consideration. You don't have to obsess, but it's never too early. So when you have little kids and you are raising little kids, then it's good to know about them and to think about them and to see what it is that could be helpful even in those stages. Let me just start with the idea of taking children seriously. Children are children. They're little kids. They're little kids. Almost everything a child will say or do or complain about or express anything about, it's trivial. It's unimportant. It's unimportant. The famous story about the Graf Potocki, the ger, who, when he was being killed for becoming a ger, for being a yid, and the person hanging him said, okay, so in the next world you're going to get back at me? The next world you're going to get back at me because I'm killing you for being a yid? And his famous answer was, I was the son of a big Puritz king, whatever his father was. He said, I remember when I was little, and I was playing with my toys, somebody came and messed them up. And I went running to my father, he was a big king, and I said, Tati, you have to kill him. You're the big king, he just messed up my toys. And I remember my father smirked, and I didn't understand it at the time, right? Well, how come my father's not taking me seriously? Now I'm older, and I realize that, a little kid's toys is nothing. And that's why I understand why my father didn't do anything about it. It's the same thing, when I come to the next world, that's where I'm going to realize that this whole world and everything that goes on here, and the fact that you killed me, and the fact that you took me out of this world, it's all so trivial based on the real thing, on the real deal. So if you think I'm going to get back at you for taking away my body and my physical life, you can be sure that that's not what's really so important. Okay, beautiful story. The moral of the story is, that we have to know what's really important in life. The example, though, the analogy of a child's toys, which is true because the adult understands that by now, but it doesn't mean that a child should ever feel that you think that what he's dealing with is trivial. Right? This is the important part. When he's complaining about a test that he's anxious about, or he's complaining about the way his Rebbe or his teacher treated him, and the parent says, "Oh, come on, it's nothing. You'll get older, you'll see it's nothing." We don't want people saying that about us in our current situation. You'll get older, or take that story. You get to the next world, you'll see it's all nothing. It's okay. So the bank is selling your house for closure. When you get to the next world, you're not going to remember that. That would be ridiculous. I think it's important to know, Stamazah, that when you're dealing with little kids, they're in their own world, and for them, their world is everything, and they have to be taken seriously. They have to feel that they're taken seriously then, because they won't interpret that properly, and it could leave a mark when they feel they weren't taken care of seriously. I may have repeated this in the past. I probably did. I remember hearing from Ingaman quite a few years after his chasna, the way he spoke about an experience that he had when he came to Shul, and he told his father that somebody was fighting with him or embarrassed him, I don't remember what it was, pushed him. His father was like, yeah, just sit down on the bed. You don't have to go out, don't just sit here. He's like, really? That's it? I'm telling you, somebody just hurt me. Somebody just sit on the bench and you're going to keep on davening? He was saying it at age 30 with so much pain, even though now he understood that okay, so his father was davening, and davening is very important. And somebody pushed him, okay, it's a thing of the past. Maybe by now already, maybe he's my best friend already, that guy. Maybe I don't even know who he is anymore, but he still had the pain of feeling misunderstood, of not feeling validated, so that's just something to take seriously, bichlal, when we talk about little kids. Those who hear people asking or ever discuss the idea of little kids are in their own world. This is their world. This is their world. You'll never regret, the amount of feeling and love and anything that you invest in small children. And bichlal and chinuch. I think I spoke about this last week. Maybe it was in the Yiddish class. It's a long-term investment raising children. So to think that, okay, I'm going to invest something in my little kid, and now he's bringing me a lot of nachas. Well, at 3 years old, maybe not. I woke up middle of the night to him, okay. But investing bichlal, investing over time in chinuch habunim, it's something we could all use chizuk in, because we don't see the quick results. But even when they're small, it's definitely important to take them seriously. And it has long-term effects. It does have long-term effects. Now, you also mentioned something about the sensitive child, which you probably heard me talk about more than once. The fact that you can see sensitivity in a very small child, that's pretty amazing. Again, when I talk about this in public, and most often the examples that we give when we talk about sensitive children who are challenging or struggling, it's the older ones that already, are further on, and the examples are more practical. But even with little kids, if you know what you're looking for, you can see sensitivity in small children, and it's important to know how to take that seriously from the beginning. It would be a shame to mess up in the beginning and then have to, redo the whole something, and start building a relationship and start building a closeness and a connection with a child who already is so skeptical and wary about you do love me, you don't love me, and all those, let's call it silly ideas that people come up with based on how they feel. Not only children, adults too. They could be silly ideas, they don't make any sense, but emotionally, it's all there. Now, I talk about, in my book, I have a chapter about the invisible UV. And that's because sometimes sensitivity is not noticeable. And sometimes it's not noticeable because the child's so small that everything's going good for him. He's getting a lot of attention, he's feeling good, everything's geschmack. So you don't notice that he's sensitive, or call it high maintenance, because he isn't. It's only later on when things get a little more tough and he's sharing parents with other siblings, or going in places that's more challenging or out of his comfort zone. What happens is sometimes you see a certain shift in a child, and people don't blame it on sensitivity. In other words, it doesn't bring that awareness, oh, my child is very sensitive, I notice now. No, he's not sensitive because I never noticed it till now. It must be that the neighbor or the teacher or the change of relocating or the moving or whatever it is, that must be what it is. It's a shame when people misinterpret it and they don't realize, no, this is an emotional reaction. This is telling. Your child having a meltdown, it's happening too often, something changed, okay, this is an emotional child. So even what you're saying over here, that it was just a couple of weeks of a rough patch, it could be it was something about the simcha and the chasnas and staying at other people's houses. But understanding this is an outcome. This is a reaction of a sensitive child and how they feel, and I'm going to take that very seriously now going forward. I'm not going to wait till they're 9 and 10 and complaining to the school therapist or whatever. This is something that you want to take seriously. The fact that a child is feeling abandoned, I don't know if it was done by surprise. I don't know. I've seen situations where there was a better way to communicate with a child about where they're going to go. If they're going to be staying by an aunt for a night, and they'll get a prize for it, and make sure they want to, and they have a choice, and they feel like they have a choice where they want to go, and you slowly transition them into something that wasn't surprising to them or uncomfortable for them. And sometimes we just, they're little, so we'll do what we want, and it really does make a difference. I don't want to elaborate on it now, but with the EFT therapy, I speak about it every once in a while. EFT, emotional freedom technique, it's a therapy that is very effective, and I give classes on it in Yiddish. So whoever wants could contact me for a class in Yiddish on EFT. It's not my Chiddush. You could find EFT in English. But it's one of the interesting parts of EFT is that you could apply it. It's called surrogate tapping. You could do it by proxy for a child. You could help a child with some kind of difficult emotions or thoughts or feelings or whatever it is, or experience, even without them working along. The point that I just wanted to mention is that I've seen similar examples where children were affected. I don't want to use the word traumatized. It sounds very scary. But they were affected by the fact that they felt abandoned. They felt like somebody just dropped them off somewhere without letting them know, without giving them a choice, without knowing when they're going to come back and be picked up and things like that. And EFT was able to resolve those feelings, but it was interesting to see how it was necessary. In other words, it was necessary to go through the steps of a specific therapy to have them resolve those feelings. Little kids, really? They feel abandoned? Well, what do you mean? They thought mommy's not coming back? Well, did you tell her you'll come back? I didn't think I have to tell her. Okay, so it's just something to think about. I don't like over dramatizing or making people too afraid, and then you go into a whole new panic of, maybe this is going to affect them long term. But there's something to it. My point is that you'll never regret, taking a young child's feelings seriously and investing in that connection, and understanding that especially sensitive children have to be taken even more seriously. No children should ever feel bad about themselves or put down, or too much competition where this one's doing it and that one, and children and being compared or seeing the other one get more attention. That's something we always have to be careful about. Chazal teach us, make sure children aren't feeling mistreated, but especially the sensitive children who are so susceptible to that kind of discomfort. It's very important to take it seriously. I could say that again, just thinking about a week ago and 2 weeks ago. Not a week goes by where I hear people talking about comments that they heard as a little child. It's surprising sometimes even. Before I mentioned the boy coming in from the shul, from the outside of the shul, but also just recently somebody mentioned to me, he's a little kid, not 3, but a young kid, and my father said something about him. His father said something about him. Father told me that you're this, you're that. He was a little kid. You'd think that 30 years later he wouldn't remember it, but he does. He does. Now, I'm not a big advocate for people blaming their parents. I talk about this often, right? Parents make mistakes. We all do. All the people complaining about their parents are also parents, also making mistakes. I'm not a big advocate of long-term therapy and looking for problems and healing in the past and the childhood and the this and the that. It's a never-ending cycle of whoever tried it knows what I mean. Whoever didn't try doesn't have to. But there is something to it if parents want to know if it's true that I should be taking my child's feelings seriously. Yeah, you wouldn't believe that you just said something to your child that they might remember in 30 years, but I'm telling you that they might. They might. So it's worth putting thought into it, and doing what you could to not leave any long-lasting marks. Let's put it like that. So that's one half of the equation, right? A child is never too young to take them seriously, and investing koyach and moyach and learning a little about chinuch and trying your best is always in place. Always in place. You won't regret it. On the other hand, I think it's as important to emphasize the downside of obsessing and taking things too seriously, and people who go into overdrive. I'm going to make sure to always take care of my kid, and I'm never going to go to a simcha and leave my kid alone. I'm never going to do this, and I won't do that. And what do I do? Oh, my kid's crying, and people start panicking. I mean, bichlal, when people do anything in an obsessive way, it's usually not good. The Torah doesn't want us to do things in obsessive ways. And bichlal, then you make a mistake, and then you can't forgive yourself, and you get self-critical. And I've spoken to parents who have children that the child is only 7, 8, and the parent, by them already, it's like, wow, this child is doomed. I already made all the damage. I must be a terrible parent. I don't know if I could have more kids. We're only human. We're only trying. I just heard somebody say something cute. He says, He was talking about what he wants to say on his matzaiva. What do I want them to write about me? He said 2 words. I want them to write, he tried. He tried, right? Was he successful? I don't know. That they know in Shemayim. Could he have tried harder? I didn't even know that either. But he tried. That's all we try. We only try. We only try. Now, of course, we have to put in a lot of effort and say we really tried. But you only have to try. You try your best. When somebody has a human moment, like I call it, I remember somebody was telling me something about where he messed up, and Shalom Bayis said something he shouldn't have said, and he prefaced it by saying, okay, so I had a human moment, and I said this comment I shouldn't have said. Now again, it doesn't excuse everything you're ever going to say, because then if you say it too often, it's not a moment anymore. But we all have human moments where we lose it, and we do something we shouldn't, and it's not good to get too self-critical, especially when it just causes people to give up and invest less, because what's the point? What's the point in keeping on trying and I keep on messing up? So it's important to just not be so self-critical and be so afraid of something that already happened. In general, whenever people ask this question, so what's now? What's the best thing I can do now for my kid? I put him in the wrong school, I mistreated him, I didn't understand him, I shamed him, my relationship was no good. So what do I do now? Which therapist should we go to? How do we start working back? Should I start apologizing? Should I start spending more time? The present and the future, that's what we have. And that's really the best therapy. One of the biggest downsides of therapy is it keeps a person in the past. So therapy is wonderful. The therapy might even have a good mahalach about how to heal something, but it just brings the person deeper and deeper into the problem. It doesn't let them move on. So it's a nice method, but it's keeping them stuck. Focusing on the present and the future with children and with anything is almost always the best way about anything. Now, the question about apologizing, right? Apologize, you make amends, say I'm sorry. Is it okay for a child to know that you made a mistake and you say I'm sorry? I think that when it comes to a 3-year-old, it's a little out of place due to the age. I don't think a child will be able to understand it or process it or think back and realize what you even mean. I don't know if you're necessarily going to be causing a problem by teaching that you might make a mistake. I think it's fine to make mistakes, we all do. But I don't think it's in place with the fact that a child doesn't understand it simply. But if the question is a child allowed to know that a parent can make a mistake? I'll tell you a secret. They know it anyway. Children know that parents make mistakes. Almost every child of a parent could list you, no matter how old. You're talking about from a 10-year-old child, let's say 10, till a 80-year-old child. Everyone will be able to tell you about all the mistakes their parents are making. So if you think that your children think you're perfect, and the question is, should I let him in on the secret that I may have made a mistake? Well, he knows it anyway. Is it okay for me to apologize and say that I made a mistake? Well, in very many cases, you're just doing the right thing by showing that you could own up and say you made a mistake. I remember when somebody told me this line, it's years already, and whenever I see him, I always remember this, that he told me this. My father never made a mistake in his life. Never made a mistake in his life. He said it with such resentment and so much pain. It was so hurtful to watch him relive that. It was probably the need for some kind of validation in at least some situations where my father messed up so bad, but no, he was always right. It's so now what does this son really think? Does he really think his father never made a mistake? He probably thinks his father always made a mistake. So what did his father accomplish by showing or make believe he never made a mistake? Nothing. Now, it could be his father didn't own up to mistakes for other reasons, not because he was trying to give this message or he was afraid to admit that he made a mistake for chinuch purposes. Maybe he had his own reason why some people just can't own up. But I don't think it's ever terrible, especially when it's obvious or in place. Tell a child, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have screamed at you, I shouldn't have done that. Do you have to apologize to a child when they demand it or how they demand it? No, that's a different thing. Children shouldn't be the ones being mechanech parents. And very often when children do that, it's wrong. And it's not a way to let your child tell you what to say and how to say it and if to say it. But the fact that a parent feels, if you genuinely feel that you did make a mistake, and you want to own up, you want to teach a child that we're all human, we make mistakes, now try doing things differently. And you don't have to go into a whole long drusha about, but I only did it because you misbehaved, and next time you won't do that. You don't have to justify everything and always be right. I don't think it's terrible to apologize. There are situations, I'll just mention this also from my recent experience that I had. Like I said before, I don't think children should be demanding apologies or saying what kind of apologies or how they have to come. I think that's wrong. Even with a spouse, I think we spoke about this more than once. I want you to apologize like this, but I did already. No, you have to do it that way, this way, another time. That's ridiculous. Doesn't get you anywhere. But there are times where in order to get a child out of a stuck place, because it's a child and because you love that child and because you want them to be successful and they're so stuck that they're demanding a certain apology even when it's out of place. Sometimes, and again I'm talking about specific times, exceptions, where it's worth doing it their way because they anyway think you made a major mistake, and they can't get out of that stuck place without you saying, you're right, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I should not have put you in that yeshiva. Now, the reason you put that kid in that yeshiva was because that was the best move for him. And you only meant as good. And you were hoping that it's going to help him. And he's refusing to go into any other yeshiva before you apologize for making that mistake. He's being unreasonable and irrational and obnoxious. And sometimes, because you love him so much, you say, you know what, you're right. I want you to put it in writing. Here it is. Again, it's not the typical, it's exception to the rule. I'm just saying it because I've seen these situations where the next best move is to work along and help a child, move on in life. But back to the simple question, yes, I think that there is place for a parent to tell a child that I made a mistake. You ask him, it's appropriate, it's okay to say I'm sorry. And I don't think that a 3-year-old who was, whose parents were more than a little aggressive for a few weeks have to now start owning up and apologizing. I think that focusing on the present and the future, in this case, and in almost every case, is probably the right way to go. I'll end with an idea that I saw. I was recently learning in the Rambam, Hilchos Avaylos. The Rambam in Hilchos Avaylos, he has 2 halachas, not one right near the other, actually, but one halacha he says that a person shouldn't cry and mourn excessively over a relative that was nifter. Somebody was nifter, okay, there's Aninus, there's the first day, a Oinen, and then there's a Shiva, and then a Shloshim, and then Yidves Chodesh. There's a way that it plays out. The Avaylos, we should never know from this. Nobody should ever know from this, but it's the way of the world. If someone's overdoing it, that's not good. Why? He calls him, he's a tippish. Interesting, the word tippish is something that the Rambam himself came up with. It's not the Gemara that he's basing it on. He calls it a tippish. It's silly, to obsess, basically, or to overreact on the darkei olam. The world is set up that people are born and people die, and there's a way to mourn, and don't overdo it. You're silly if you're overdoing the way you mourn and cry over the regular way that things happen in this world. And in a separate halacha, he says that a person shouldn't be apathetic and not care at all when somebody dies, and say, why mourn, why this? It's okay, it's fine, no crying, nothing needed. It's wrong. Why? That's midas achzurius. Midas achzurius. The Gemara talks about it. Somebody who wouldn't cry at all. What is that? Why are you so cold? To something like that. That's not only an achzur like that. You should take it seriously. You should cry. You should mourn. This is the way the Torah wants us to do. There were the philosophers and those people that they tried to detach themselves from any emotions or anything worldly and be higher than that, and the Torah doesn't want that. So it's just interesting how the Eibshter set up a world where don't not take it seriously, don't ignore it, don't take it too seriously. Find the middle path. And this is about everything in the world, and the Rambam himself says that in every midah we have to always find the derech hamitzah. When it comes to children's chinuch, on the one hand, the people who say, I'm saying the mindset that, it's only a child, or he's so young, it doesn't make a difference, or you're getting so caught up with this, why you're listening to another class, you're thinking about, come on, no, don't do that. Don't ignore the way of the world. Don't think that it's nothing. Don't think that you're smarter or better, or you'll figure it. You'll just ignore it all. It's all going to happen by itself. It's not like that. Take it seriously. But then if you take it too seriously, and you start obsessing over a mistake that you made, or you think that any little thing will cause everlasting damage, right? And you're basically just being tippish by not realizing there's a way of the world. There's a way that things happen. There's a way that things happen. I think we have to find the middle path. It's like I said. It's not, just to summarize, it's never too early, and it's never too late. And we should be taking children seriously, even when they're very young, and especially when they're very young, because that's when they need to feel taken seriously. And we shouldn't obsess or overreact. And when we focus on the present, and we focus on the future, and we try our best, I think that's everything. So like I started off with, Sophia Lepiv, we do have to think about what we say. And we do have to be careful, not to tear others or cause damage, both with children, and the same with a spouse. Whoever we interact with, we always have to be thought out and try our best. And if we ever make a mistake, we have to, make amends and make sure that we're doing the best thing possible. The right amount of thought and see out the Shmaya. We have to live together.